Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. I'm Tully, and today, oh boy. I have issues with impulsiveness. And by that I mean I have issues with rage as well, and they've been hounding me for the past 20 years of my life. But especially over the last 3 or 4. I have problems, I'm trying to deal with them, thank you very much. And recently, I did something that pissed off a few kind of people on Steam Greenlight and kind of let someone a bit down. That something was the very last video I made, which was a rant video with me and Neo Tanner about this game called Gamersgomakers. Apologies where they are deserved. I should have let myself have had a day and a night to think through the things I wanted to do. I kind of played it up for laughs. It didn't work. It offended some people, and as far as I'm aware, as far as I care, the opinion is there. It's the same, but the execution and the way it was delivered was not good. And for that, I want to do a proper quick look at video at this game. So let's just start, okay? Mr. Gneferable, or Line Liar, or however you want to be referred to. Once again, it's not hate. It's just that the way I put my opinion across was a bit too aggressive. So let's just do this. As you've noticed, the game doesn't have any sound. That's because I muted the game. I normally have my system sound at 30, because literally every game I have can be somewhere around that line. I can use the settings menu to change it. This one can't, and the music is really, really loud. And I mean really loud. If I had the music on right now, dear Lord, you would not be hearing me talk, which for some of you might actually be a good thing. So again, let's just make a new game, shall we? And let's go through the entire thing, proper review this time. And this is, beginning here, this is something, it's not really a complaint I have about the game, it is a concern. This is very much like the Pac-Man Ghost. There's a lot of images out there in the actual game case design that I believe are copyrighted. I am not sure. It is not a complaint, it is merely me saying, I don't know if this is possible or allowed. So there you go. Let's make a company name, shall we? It'd be Burnalot Enterprises. Also, Tully Burnalot isn't exactly a name chosen at random. I do tend to burn, as it were. And again, this is a demo. Purely a demo. This is not representative of the full game, hopefully. The full game will have more stuff on it. So I'm just going to review the demo as it is. You can play 5 years. We're probably not going to play it all. So let's just do this. You can choose easy, normal, pro. I'm going to go with normal. I never like pro in these kind of games because I always suck at them. Let's not go windowed because this might screw up the recording. And of course, let's just keep these things normal. This is, again, I'm going to compare this a lot to Game Dev Tycoon because this is clearly inspired by Game Dev Tycoon, which was in fact inspired by Game Dev Story. And in fact, the more I look at it, the more I realize that the things I want to say against this game were things people were saying against Game Dev Tycoon when it came out because of Game Dev Story. It is, again, the concept of iteration in video games. The question is this game different enough to stand on its own merit? Which is what we will be reviewing here today. Customization is pretty much the same as it was with Game Dev Tycoon. Not that it really matters. Nothing of this has any sort of impact on the game as far as I'm aware of. Now, my very first complaint about this game is the UI is ugly. I don't like it. It's basically huge, vast spaces that have nothing on them, really striking white backgrounds and huge white shit. I don't understand. It might be just because this is a demo, but I very much like the final UI to be properly maintained, be a lot smoother, be prettier, basically. Now for the actual first complaint about this is these two sliders. This game, much like Game Dev Tycoon I might add, tells you nothing. I have no idea how this influences the game at all. There are no tooltips, there are no indications, there are no numbers, there are no nothing. I do not know what this does. I can assume that if I put my points toward the slider towards leadership, that would mean I would maybe squeeze some extra work out of the people I work with, which doesn't really have any sort of impact in the beginning. I don't know. What does creativity do? What does programming do? What does game design do? It doesn't tell you. That's the point. I don't like games that don't tell me things. You could wager, you could say, oh, we could figure it out as you go. I don't want to figure it out as I go. I'm making a character. I'd like to know what this does, please. Thank you. Not to mention that why is creativity the opposite of leadership? According to this game, creativity and leadership are mutually exclusive. Why is my question. Why is creativity and leadership mutually exclusive? I don't get it. I just don't get it. It seems like a weird balancing measure. If this is a balancing measure, I just don't get it. Reality comes game balance comes before reality, but logic needs to come before game balance. And why is creativity being mutually exclusive with leadership doesn't make any sort of sense, at least to me. And programming and game design. Once again, one of my complaints about this game is some of the categories are really, really broad. And programming and game design, what does that mean? Can I not be good at programming and game design? Have there not been people, indie developers, that have created games that are both beautiful looking and well coded? Banished, for instance. Dust, an Elysian Tale. Dust and Elysian Tale, for instance, was made by a single person over the course of several years. It was beautiful, it was amazing, and it was a great coded game. He even ported the game and did a better job than most AAA companies. So again, programming and game design being mutually exclusive is, to me, nonsensical. But let's move on, shall we? Again, what are your strengths? Please choose two. This is another issue I have with the game. There's lots of empty spaces. Like if I'm clicking on this, nothing's happening, as you can see here. What you need to do is actually click on the things. Click on the actual, you can't click on the names or any of the white spaces. You need to click on the actual icons. Again, minor complaint. But I very much like if you click like here, you'd have like, I don't know, a colored background saying this has been selected, but apparently not. And the first time I played this around, and still now, I clicked gameplay and I was like, wait, did I select this or not? It's like a tiny bit of color. Zoom in, it's a tiny bit of color that keeps going in and out. At least graphics is noticeable, sound as well, sorta. It is striking green. So let's go gameplay and composition, because I like music. Composition, of course, being between gray and light teal, like blue. There we go. Welcome to Gamersgomakers. Again, I'm not going to put music because, dear lord, this is really loud. 80s are back, as you can see, first of all, blah, blah. I also don't like the informal tone. That is a personal taste, but I don't like the informal tone. For instance, let's just see if you click this. You're such a Grinch. Smiley face. I understand what you're trying to do, which is trying to establish a friendly atmosphere, but I don't like informality in games like this. It just kind of breaks the immersion, really. It kind of doesn't seem right. Anyway, please note this game is still in development, yes, and it'll be released in the summer of 2014. I've expressed concerns about that, but again, we have to see. Please give us our support on Steam Greenlight if you like our game. Now go ahead, click on your character, and then start your business by creating your first game. Have fun. It tells you nothing else. Let me just pause the game here. Okay, once again, complaints about the UI. It looks clunky. It looks boxy. Not to mention that if you look at it, it looks exactly like Game Dev Tycoon. I'm sorry, but it does. It looks exactly like Game Dev Tycoon with the God damn it, what was the name? Icono. Seriously, I have the name right in the fucking tip of my tongue. Ugh. Isometric. It's an isometric view. You're viewing this side by side. It's kind of like, again, visually, this is not just similar to Game Dev Tycoon. This is identical to Game Dev Tycoon, which kind of had some differences from Game Dev Story. Then again, I might have to add, I have never played Game Dev Story. I've played Game Dev Tycoon. And here's another thing I don't understand. Again, this is really ugly. I don't like the UI. It's just white blank spaces. It could be better. The background is the whitewash, gray wash in this case. The money's just here. I don't like it. Again, that is a graphical design decision by the maker of the game. I'm just saying I don't like the UI as it stands now. And this is something that really perplexes me, which is why is this like this? The entirety of the game is in English. I don't remember it asking for an installation language in the installation, but I do. But even if it did, I always pick English. And even if I didn't, this game is still in English. As you can see, there is a light trend for strategy war games coming up. So why exactly is the date in Portuguese? Why? Because that's what this is. This means Friday, January 4th, 1980. Why is the date in Portuguese? Is it going at my system language? I don't understand. Why, of all things, is this in here? Anyway, moving on. It does tell you the trends, a lot like Game Dev Tycoon always told you. Of course, for some from experience, this does tend to have a lot more trends, including simultaneous trends. So basically, you won't be going and trying to hit that one trend that one time. Also, the UI doesn't tell you anything. You need to mouse over things to discover. Game market, of course, you don't really know. You can put auto update on or on, which is good. You can actually check your things. I know what this does. No idea what this does, actually. Whatever. Market share, of course, indicates the market share of the various consoles on the market. And of course, you do have the running tradition of not naming these things according to their true names, which is kind of funny because later on in the case design, you'll see things that I clearly believe are copyrighted characters, and yet here you don't put the actual names in. So you have Commodore, the Pear, the Sinclair, and the Etapi. Let's move on. There's two ways of beginning a project. You either click this, as you can see here, and again, freaking UI. I don't like this white box. Or you can click this. This is what I don't like about the game, is the simple fact that one of the options here is a big red button. Why would you make it a big red button? I'm nitpicking, but when I actually played this the first time, I didn't want to click this. Experience has taught me that big red buttons are bad. Bad stuff happens when you click big red buttons. So exactly, I just accidentally pressed this, really. That's when I realized, oh wait, this is the control character thingy. Okay. Anyway, as for settings, you don't have settings in the main game. I don't think Game Dev Tycoon had either. Of course, you do have settings. You have animations, autosave, show tutorial, play music, show upcoming platforms. You can actually turn this off. I don't know why you would turn this off for any reason. So let's just begin the game. Let's just, info. You can, of course, check your information on your character, as you can see here. Now let's begin the game, shall we? Start a new project. And this is where I believe, this is where the meat of the game is. And this is where I believe we should start reviewing it. And as far as I'm aware of, barring a few different things, this is a lot similar to Game Dev Tycoon. Really, really similar. Except for a couple of other things. So let's just go at it. Currently platforms, blah, 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 blah. Yes, complexity represents how difficult it is to make a game. Right now, there are only 2 platforms available, of course. Basic. Let's just do a game for the Commodore. Choose a genre, which are the same genres available. Let's see, trends for strategy, war games. One new thing that this game did, in fact, introduce is the fact that you can randomly name your game. I believe this is just random list that's already been made. I don't think it's actually generating words. I think. Pretty sure I've actually seen plenty of those that have been, let me see, I don't know, repeated. Plus, one of the good things is a lot more room. One of the complaints I had about Game Dev Tycoon was that you had very little room to name your games. So for this one, you can actually name everything whatever you want. You seem to have a lot of rooms for efforts here. So I'm going to go with, you know what, screw it, let's go with, I don't even know, Europe, Total War, Dash Reckoning, following a joke that Total Biscuit made in his review of Game Dev Tycoon. Everything sounds better when you put Reckoning on it. Again, this is just a name. I don't believe it has any sort of inclination towards the actual sales of the game. The extra features right now, your options are limited, of course. This is basically like Game Dev Tycoon as well, except you can get to choose everything here, while in Game Dev Tycoon you would choose them as you went by. Basically, in Game Dev Tycoon, you choose the type, basically the layout, the framework, and then as you produce the game, you can add stuff like better AI or scripting or whatever. But here you can pretty much just choose what you want right now. Of course, this being initial January 4th, 1980, it's text-based, basic sound. And again, this is something that I didn't like with Game Dev Tycoon, don't like with this one. How am I supposed to make a strategy war game on text? It seems mutually exclusive. Just saying. Next. Of course, it's a free project. You must assign at least 1 employee to each area by default, blah, blah, blah. If you do not have any employees, there's nothing for you to do here. Another complaint. If there's nothing for me to do here, why show me this screen at all? Seriously, why? You can show me this screen when I actually have employees. As of now, you're showing me this screen, I'm looking at it, I can't do anything. I was just clicking on it for 2 seconds before I realized, yeah, I don't exactly have the power to do anything. So why show me? Again, nitpicking, whatever. One of the good things, you can actually minimize this. I don't think you realize, but when you're choosing the wallpaper, you couldn't move the wallpaper selector. So you couldn't actually see a lot of the wallpaper. Just saying. Next. Blah, blah. This is where a lot of people are going, this is a new system, blah, 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 blah. This is not a new system. Okay? Not a new system at all. This is basically a different presentation of how Game Dev Tycoon functioned. Only instead of sliders, you have a 1 to 4 point scale, which as far as I'm concerned, is a downgrade, is a step back. I much preferred the sliders. Of course, you do get more sliders as the time goes, the more points as the time goes, but I prefer the sliders because as of now, you're going to be, of course, if you look at this graph, as you can see here, if you can in fact take away points. You can't take away all the points, obviously, but you get 13 points to spend initially. I think you get more points as the time goes by if you unlock more shit. But I prefer the sliders, and here's why. With the sliders, you had a small bar down the bottom saying this is how much relative time in the stage of development is going to be spent on each of these 3 things you've chosen. And if you play Game Dev Tycoon, you know what I'm talking about. So technically speaking, you could in fact just reduce something to 0, and you'd still have something like 10% of the time being spent on it, because you kind of need it. The game doesn't intentionally screw you over or allow you to screw over more than you have to. But in this game, you can in fact make a game that has literally no effort put into it. Because keep in mind that what the sliders did in Game Dev Tycoon were relative importance. So basically, you slide them around, and the bar on the bottom would indicate the random importance of each in relation to the total time spent. Here, it's just amount of points on thing. And you can quite literally just do this, do a game like this, screw yourself over. I mean, I'm all for failure states, don't get me wrong, but this seems a bit excessive. You can intentionally screw yourself over. Of course you wouldn't, I think. You're not fun creators. You wouldn't make something like Guys of the Wolf, now would you? But it seems a bit of an odd design decision. And quite frankly, this is exactly how Game Dev Tycoon works, except with a slightly different graphical presentation. That's my honest opinion here. As you'll see later, the reviews sometimes produce completely counterintuitive results. And you'll see why. This is put gameplay maximum, level design maximum, of course, content design goes on 3, game writing goes on 2, game engine goes on 3, sound goes on 2, actually no, let's put sound 2, sound design 2, graphics minimum, because again, it's text-based, it shouldn't even have graphics. What is graphics on text-based? Font? Again, this is something that Game Dev Tycoon also had. It was stupid. It's counterintuitive. It should have been removed. Next. Also, something I don't like. Oh, apparently it does. Apparently, for some reason, I can't actually... oh, that's because it's outside the boundaries. Whatever. Okay. Oh, wait, there we go. You can speed up the game by right-clicking, though I don't think it actually speeds up. Tutorial. You can choose a theme. Again, this is a part of the game that I have to rightfully say is new, and I like it. Let's see. You can choose what type of story you have to pick. And credit where it's due, there's a shit ton of stories and genres to pick from here. So obviously we're just going to go with the traditional one, UFO, because why not? You can, of course, choose the budget for what kind of story you want to. And again, you can intentionally screw yourself over and put yourself into debt with a shitty story. Again, it's possible, but it's a bit weird to be able to intentionally screw yourself over. Pardon me. And of course, you can put translations. The ones available, as you can see, are US, Germany, France, Spain, Japan, China, Russia, Portugal, Korea, and what I think is Saudi Arabia? Not sure. I think it might be Saudi Arabia. And again, this is funny because it's funny that a game that features translation, the game dev has said he's not going to translate the game unless someone volunteers. It's just a tidbit. I find that highly ironic, but whatever. But this is where I still I have to say, this game doesn't tell you the results. It's like, I can change this around, I can change this around, I can change this around. It doesn't tell you anything. And the reviews, at best, give you indications saying a bit this, too less that, whatever, whatever. It is a step up from what Game Dev Tycoon was, but it still doesn't tell you enough to justify it. Not to mention that, keep in mind, these are incredibly different markets. A game would not behave, the exact same game would have a lot different reception in America and, let's say, Germany, or Russia, especially Russia, or Saudi Arabia. And as far as I'm aware of, I don't know if this actually influences your sales, because it doesn't tell you. It just doesn't tell you. And that's what pisses me the hell off. It doesn't tell you. Game Dev Tycoon didn't either. That's why I didn't like it either. Because frickin' hell, I like games that tell me things. And this one doesn't. And here's another thing, which is adult content kinda includes violence and explicit language. I'm assuming that by adult content you mean, and this icon, you mean something like sexuality or sexual themes. But adult content, especially when you go at ratings like the ESRB, when you have stuff like adult or mature content, which would, of course, include violence, explicit language, sexual themes, etc., and so forth. So as far as I'm concerned, at least in my idea, adult content does in fact include explicit language and violence. Again, these themes are really, really generalistic, and the game doesn't tell you enough of what they do and what kind of influence they have. They're just kind of there. Then again, this is a demo, so maybe the final game will have indicators, or maybe not. I don't know. That's the point. This is something that Game Dev Tycoon did wrong, which it didn't tell you anything. This game kind of tells you more stuff, but not that much, as you'll see. Anyway, budget is 5K because it's a freaking strategy game. Violence, of course, will go like this. Explicit language will go like this. And of course, you can produce completely counterintuitive results like a war game with zero violence, zero adult content, zero explicit language, or a fighting game with zero violence, which makes absolutely no goddamn sense. Which I would assume would make a bad game. I'm not stupid enough to try. So violence goes like that, explicit language, because you want some colorful language. Let's begin this. And again, I don't know if this actually speeds up. Look at the rate it's going. It's actually sped up, as you can see by the icon. And now it's not sped up. It appears to be going faster. I don't understand how this works. And this is something that, again, I have to point out in relation to Game Dev Tycoon. Let's just stop here. Game Dev Tycoon had 3 indicators on top. He had technical points, graphical points, and bugs. Those, the first 2, technical and graphical, not only served as a measure to as a gauge of your quality, they would also allow you to beat your own records. In fact, it pretty much told you, this is where you beat your record on technical points, or you beat your record on both of them, or just one. It would be an indicator of how well your game would be and how well you're going with the times. Because as long as you're progressing through the game, you should be producing more and more and more points. By the time in Game Dev Tycoon, by the time you get to the 3rd phase, you should be making games that regularly beat the 120, 130 line on both. And the bugs presented themselves as a valid challenge, because you need to make a juggling act. Do I want to release a game in a buggy state because I need the money right now, or do I want to risk bankruptcy but release a game that I know is not going to have any bugs? Do I want to make a patch now or not make a patch? Here, you just kind of make the game, and eventually the game's going to be done. And that's kind of it, really. You just kind of do the game, wait until the thing goes down, and that's it. As soon as it hits 100%, it automatically releases. In fact, one of the things I liked in Game Dev Tycoon that's not here is Game Dev Tycoon, you could make a game and scrap it entirely. Here, you automatically release it. Which, again, isn't realistic. I might make a game I'm not proud of and want to just dump it. Of course, not in the beginning, because I'm strapped for cash, but still. And here we come. This, as far as I'm aware of, again, is a completely cosmetic thing. Completely cosmetic. To the point, really, where you can just, do that. Randomize everything. If it's purely cosmetic, why not let us design? Because the way it's done is you have 2 designs now. I think these will be probably either available later on or available only in the official version. We can pretty much pick and choose these 2, change the color, and that's it. And here's the issue I have. This is a very major issue I had. You can either pick these incredibly innocuous icons, or Here's the issue I have with this game. Pretty sure that's Nathan Drake. Pretty sure that's Iron Man. Pretty sure that's a Worgen. Pretty sure that's Alex Mercer. Don't know who that is. 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 Looks like a Draenei. This is blah, 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 moving on. That looks like the QB from Naruto, but not really. This is a dwarf from World of Warcraft. Explosion. Where's the thing? Where's the thing here? Where's the? And there you go, Knuckles. Neo Tanner did in fact provide a. I'll provide a link to that. He did in fact take some screenshots of some of these characters, and frankly, Stormtrooper, I have concerns. This isn't really a complaint, so much as it is me telling the developer or asking the developer, and I know the developer is listening. Are you allowed to do this? Are these public domain images? Are these copyrighted images? Did you ask permission to use these images? Pretty damn sure that the Stormtrooper is not owned by Disney. That Knuckles is currently owned by Sega, which is currently owned by Nintendo. That Iron Man is owned by Marvel. That this is probably fan art. Don't know if the developer made that. Well, technically speaking, if the developer drew that, that is quite badass. +1 on that one. But here's the point, is these are pictures that I recognize. This is Knuckles the Echidna. This is a Stormtrooper. That was Nathan Drake and Alex Mercer and Iron Man. Do you have permission to use these? If you do, then fine. It's perfectly fine. But do you? That's the question I want to make, because quite frankly, if you don't have permission to use these images, you're in for a heap of trouble when this thing gets on Steam, if it gets on Steam. Just saying. Just randomize that. Brain games. Now you just wait for the thing to get to 100%, I guess. I think I might be able to hit the trend for strategy war games. Yep, there you go. Development of your first game is finished, as you can see. Exact same screen, it just has a different, might I add, worse presentation. I honestly think it looks uglier than Game Dev Tycoon. There's a lot of open spaces here, like a lot of open spaces. I mean, why is this here? I honestly don't understand. You can do this, I guess. Sorry about that. I had to make a small interruption. Anyway, I don't know what. Oh, you can reassign, I guess, points. Don't know how that works. No one told me. Moving on, I guess. Anyway, tutorial. Again, this is something I like about the game. The game is nice enough to tell you if there's a trend, if there's any similar game, what the market share is, and what the average price is. I'm not going to push it, so average is 18. I'm going to put a +20. If we're the first people to be making video games, how can there be an average in the first place? It says so in the freaking demo. Be one of the first people to make video games. An average is an average for a reason. It needs N. It needs number of things being on the market. So, how can there be an average if we're one of the first? Just saying. Next. Congratulations. Now wait. Get a review. Show review. Okay, there we go. And here's something that I don't like, and I think this game completely and utterly misses. Let's make a basic mathematics calculation here. Applications, I'm actually using my phone. 3.5 plus 6 plus 7.5 plus 9 plus 7.5 plus 7.5 equals 41.1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 divided by 6. This is an average of 6.85. So you know what? It's actually pretty damn similar, 67%. But when I was doing the rant video, I made a game that averaged 6 out of 10, and I got a 26% or something. Can you ever explain that? This one is the closest I got, but I've gotten results so discrepant from one another, it made me question, is this a completely different score from this? Because if it is, no indication has been made of that. Literally no indication. I don't know how this is related to this. And again, this is something that makes no sense. Bland graphics with lots of reused textures and characters. It's a text-based game. Allow me to repeat myself. It's a text-based game. Allow me to say it again. It's a text-based game. The results need to have some sort of logic to it. Uh, Great level design makes battles tense but never frustrating. How can I make a strategy game with text? Don't know. Satisfying, varied, hard-hitting combat. On text. Bland graphics with lots of reused textures and characters. On text. How does this make sense? It would make sense if you use stuff like vector graphics or maybe 2D graphics or 3D, but text? Text? What? It makes no sense. It just doesn't. I don't understand. And this is what really pisses me off about this game. It makes no sense, these reviews. They tell you more stuff, and I've actually had the pleasure of seeing if you really fuck up in a particular area, you do in fact, the game tells you, you should have paid more attention to this. And here, 3.5 out of 10. It's not red. Normally when you fuck up, it says red number out of 10. But here, it's normal because, hey, it's text-based. But they're complaining about the text with reused textures and characters? It's a font. A font. Trying very hard not to get pissed off here. It's a font. How can it have bland textures? Dear Lord. And now you put the money. And that's it. That's the demo. That's literally the demo. Another thing I do have to say is research. It works exactly like you would imagine. It's pretty much just like Game Dev Tycoon. You pay X, you stay, and for a few days, and boom, you can do that now. And start a new project, and you can. I'll actually show you there. And one of the things that, again, credit where it's due, it actually freaking tells you. Good things. As you can see here, it says, this game is good for this console. Thank you. Previously on Game Dev Tycoon, I had to remember that by head. This is actually a good step up, and something that's good about the game. So if I go here and do, for example, that, I have mono sound. But here's what I have to say. Is, again, the UI looks clunky. It just shows up here. I like the idea in Game Dev Tycoon, which is basically the sales would show up in this corner. They would tell you how many. This is out of the 90 days it remains in the market. No, it's not exciting because the game's going to be in the market for 90 days. That's it? Really? Wow. Really short shelf life. Pretty sure there are games from the 90s which are still sold around in stores to this day. Credit where it's due. This game has a lot of good ideas. The idea behind choosing how much explicit language, violence, and adult content is in there. The translation, the story, the review system that does tell you more than Game Dev Tycoon does. It has lots of fresh ideas, but the presentation, much like my rant video, is lacking. It feels clunky. It feels thrown together quickly. It feels dated. It feels old. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the UI is, frankly, quite ugly, and it just seems put together really quickly. The only parts of the game that are well-defined is the middle one, and that's pretty much ripped right out of Game Dev Tycoon, including your character sprite. But credit where it's due, the developer did have good ideas. There are good ideas in this game. And the fact that eventually, you don't see it here, but eventually, I actually played this game for quite some time now. Because I play the full demo, because I like to know what I'm talking about. And competitors do show up, competitors do appear, they play other games, and as far as I'm aware of, they do impact your market share. And this game is actually nice enough to tell you when a new console gains majority market share. So one of my demo playthroughs, I made like 3 or 4 of those actually. Atari and the Atapi and the Commodore kept exchanging market lead. And it's quite nice. It feels interactive. But apart from those ideas, this game is fun to play precisely because it's pretty much the same as Game Dev Tycoon. Bar those 2 or 3 ideas, the new review system, that's pretty much it. But again, this game is a demo. It is not representative of the full package. That is something we'll have to wait and see until summer 2014. But as for now, it's basically Game Dev Tycoon with a inferior reskin. I'm sorry, but I feel it is an inferior reskin, and a couple of new ideas that could have easily been made into a mod. But again, this is a demo. I don't know how the full game will be. And I hope that when the full game comes out, I might be able to procure it, and I might be able to properly give it the review it deserves. But that's my honest opinion. It has good ideas, but it needs to execute them better. So if I offended anyone with my rant video, I'm not going to say I'm sorry, because it's done, so fuck you. I'm not actually trying to offend anyone. It's just that me. I'm literally that honest. If you didn't like it, then fucking who cares? I said it. I'm not going to say I'm sorry because the general opinion is still there. I'm going to say sorry for the way I said it, which could have been a lot calmer. And this is my honest opinion of the game, the demo, at least as it stands now. It has good ideas. It has fresh ideas. However, it needs a design overhaul, it needs better, prettier interface, and it needs to execute those ideas better. If it does that, and it adds everything on the feature list, then maybe it can stand on its own as a full game rather than being accused of being a Game Dev Tycoon ripoff/clone. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, and please stay tuned in to the next video. Mr. Lion Liar /Nifferable/Gnifferable, however you pronounce it. Once again, I'm sorry if I seem to be hating on the game. I am very caustic, I am very enthusiastic, and I should have been calmer about the whole thing. Hopefully, this will indicate to you just how I feel about the game. We can have reasonable discourse. We all grow better and faster and stronger through reasonable criticism, not just mudslinging. So thank you for tuning in, and please stay tuned in to the next video. Goodbye.